Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 45. I hope you guys are doing well. Storm Darragh might have played its part in a few games this week. I think just the 3 cooled off, but it's not stopping the mighty Mariners, Grimsby Town, from absolutely romping the league like we are. 8 goals scored this week. Absolutely on flames are those black and white stripes. We'll discuss a little bit more of them in a bit, as well as the rest of the action this week. But I'm not alone. We're joined by Jake, Luke, and Jack for this one. Quite a quiet weekend for one. I think, disappointment again for the other, especially in Jack's case. I think we're pretty used to seeing that at this rate. But how is everything at your end, guys?
Yeah, I wish our game was called off. It unfortunately survived a late pitch inspection, but hopefully we'll be better next week because the game was absolutely terrible. But we'll just go and get next weekend and hope.
I mean, I'm just bored of these games getting cancelled. Like northern teams with like horrible little pitches and barely any facilities. And once again, it's another Tuesday we're going to have to spend up north. So yeah, thanks Barry for that. Yeah, really appreciate it.
I already made the joke, but I don't care because this is the second time we're recording it. But it's very ironic coming from you, being an MK Dons fan. Calling other teams tin pot. Yeah, there's something to that which is very interesting. Jack, how are you?
I'm jealous, to be honest, of getting games called off. We're 4 without a win now, so not great situation at the moment. No,
and you said that you've wanted to somewhat dive into a little bit of Tranmere in this one, which we will do a little bit, but we'll start at Crewe Bradford. In fact, we'll probably just mention actually the 3 games that were called off. That was Bromley against MK Dons, as Luke has already mentioned. Newport against Carlisle, that was off. And Notts County's game against Colchester, that also fell to Storm Darragh. But as mentioned, we'll start with Crewe. 1-1 draw at home to Bradford. Of course, it was my Lord and Saviour Omar Bogle opening the scoring for Lee Bell's men. The equaliser coming in the form of Alex Patterson, in which he had a very eventful few minutes. By looks of things, with the red card as well. I think many people expected. I think probably going into it, I think you're probably looking at it on paper. Crewe looking pretty decent at the minute. Bradford probably not on the best of form. That I think you'd probably fancy Crewe for this one. I think I'm just looking at it from a Bradford perspective as well. The fact that they finished with 10 men as well. I don't think it's a very bad point at all, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's not a bad point considering Bradford haven't won since mid-October and you're going away to a side that are right up there at the top end of the table and you think it's going to be a tough game. Not many teams go to Crewe and win. They've only lost once since match day 3 because obviously they started terribly. But it's a good point for them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with them. So I think maybe there's a chance that it might have been a slight missed opportunity for Crewe in the sense, but I think Bradford are... They're all right, but I think if we're probably looking on recent form, I think there's maybe a hint of maybe 1 or 2 maybe missed chances, maybe to get 3 points in there. But I think especially if we're looking at the whole game as well, again we're judging this off stats and with the goals I've seen, it looked very even. So you could maybe argue it was probably a fair point. But I'm not sure what you think, Luke. What do you think?
I think if I'm a Crewe fan, I'm probably quite disappointed, especially because you're supposed to be a top side and you're right up against 10 men for a while. You'd expect them to be able to capitalise. I'm also just looking at their form. I think the last 10 games, to be fair to them, they're very good at getting at least a point. But the problem is a lot of the time it is only a point. I think 6 of their last 10 have been draws. They're unbeaten in that 10, but 6 of them are draws. So they just need to find that extra level to, finish games off. And I think this was a real opportunity missed in that sense. I think especially when you look at the marking for the goal they did concede while it was 11v11. I think the midfield lets their defence down massively. I don't know why Bradford had so many men forward with Crewe not actually having anyone there. But yeah, opportunity missed.
Yeah, it's interesting now you've mentioned it with the draws. I've just seen that they've... they're unbeaten in so many games, but especially their last 5 games in particular, they've drawn 4 of them. They were 1-0 up at Walsall. They drew 1-1 in the end. They beat Notts County. They drew 1-1 with Port Vale, scoring a very late goal. It was a really good game. That they drew 1-1 at Carlisle. They had that. Carlisle had that early goal, and I think Crewe scored pretty late in the 82nd minute. But maybe slight disappointment there with how maybe low that Carlisle are, but probably a decent point, all things considering. And then this one to Bradford, who again finished with 10 men. The red card. I think we should probably just look at it. Alex Patterson going from hero to zero very quickly. It just seems to me like he's like, I think there's a foul from another player. It was on Bogle, I believe, and it's just sort of, it's like he's kicked the ball at him, but it didn't seem. I think he was just trying to boot it anyway. I honestly think it's harsh. If I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure what you think, Jack, or just any of you in particular. I'll open this up, but I can see why. I think the reaction of maybe the Crewe players might have provoked it a little bit, but I don't think it is. If I'm going to be completely honest, I think it's quite harsh.
I think nowadays you're going to give it. I think that's sort of the key thing nowadays. You're probably going to give it. I would probably say it's a yellow too. I think it's a feisty game. You're always going to get some sort of handbags. And certainly, I mean, after that there was 4 or 5 yellow cards after that. One for both managers, I think. Someone on the Crewe bench, a couple of players. So I think it was, it was a tense, competitive situation. You're always going to get someone who might sort of cross that thin line. Obviously Patterson did, and I mean now he's going to be missing for a few games.
Yeah, I mean, I somewhat see where we come on. I'll open this up for both you, Luke and Jake as well. What do you think? Just very quickly on it, because I mean, I just don't think it is. I think you can see what he's trying to do, but it's just not gone. I don't know. I just don't think it is.
I mean, I think it is the intent really, and the force he's hit it with. Because, I mean, what reason would he actually have to boot the ball in that direction? I think it's just a stupid decision, really. He's given the ref the opportunity to make that choice either way. Yeah, all he has to do is not kick the ball, and he does, and there's no problem there. So to be honest, whichever way you argue it, he can still only have himself to blame.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Luke said, and I also think it's just the Crewe players' reaction. If they just stayed still, then I don't think the referee would give it. But as they all run and put that question towards the referee, they make him have to make a decision, and Bradford should have just prevented that.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's partly stupid, but I don't think it's red card stupid. I can completely see what he was trying to do. I think that the force he kicked that with, as well as was played a part in that, and with the Crewe play surrounding the referee, I just don't think it's a red card. I think you can see he was trying to boot the way from another foul. I think it was given for another foul. I think from one of the players, I believe Smallwood it might have been. But I think he was just trying to boot the ball away. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that, but I just think it is. I mean, look, Crewe 1-1 draw. Another draw. I tell you what, we play Crewe next week. Wouldn't half mind a draw. I'll be honest myself, but there's that one. So I think it's a better point for Crewe than from Bradford there. I think we should probably talk about the biggest game of the day. It was the top two, Port Vale, Walsall. Walsall winning this one by a goal to nil. Jamil Matt scoring the only goal of the game. It was an interesting goal, just sort of like parried by the goalkeeper, and it somehow trickled in. It was a game that didn't really lack a lot of quality, but I didn't think it was always going to. I think there might have been a chance. I think both teams were somewhat scared to lose. I do think Walsall slightly edged it after watching the game, and they got they got 3 points at the end of it, and they've gone top of the table.
Yeah, I think Port Vale will be disappointed because Rico Richards went through and had a great chance and he put it wide. Stockley had one played off the line, and then to concede the goal that they did when should the keeper do better? Possibly, but that is slightly harsh on Connor Ripley. I think they'll be more disappointed because obviously now Walsall go top with the game in hand, which isn't ideal for them. But they'll definitely look to respond next week. So they've got Bromley, which you'd expect them to win, but Port Vale's recent form hasn't been the best. So it will be a tough game for them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, Walsall absolutely flying at the minute. I think they're 10 unbeaten, something like that. Again, they're a little bit like Crewe, but they've won a few more games here and there, and they're rightly so top of the league. They've been fantastic, and a lot of credit has to go to Matt Stafford's way. Is it somewhat feeling a little bit? I think with Port Vale, they're during the week to Cheltenham as well. They They drew late with Crewe. I mean, we're saying that. I mean, they won 5 in a row before that, but I just feel like they started to maybe hit like a couple of like roadblocks, sort of say. I know it's still a long way to go, but I think there's maybe a little bit of food for thought there, maybe perhaps. I mean, I'm not denying their quality or anything like that. I'm just not sure if, they're having this patch that maybe you do see teams have early in the season. I'm not sure maybe if Port Vale are maybe starting to go down that a little bit, which I fear they might be a tad.
It's a tricky one because, I mean, you look at the sides that they have dropped points to, most of them are the ones that are up there or are in fantastic form. But at the same time, when you're adding these results together, it doesn't quite look as good. So I think it's one of those things. I think especially with this game against Walsall, it was a game of very fine margins, and it's just been a couple of moments, and those moments went Walsall's way. For me, I think as long as they get the next 1 or 2 games and they get themselves under control, because they do have a couple of so-called easier fixtures now. So I think if they win them, they're totally fine. If not, then I think that there is more cause for concern.
Yeah, I think the proof might be in the pudding next few games. I mean, we mentioned the fact they've got Bromley next. They've got Carlisle to play after that, and then they've got Bradford. So they've got 3 games in which, on paper, I think should be more than winnable. Especially Carlisle in particular. Bromley have sort of had a few decent results here and there, and Bradford, it can play well on the odd day, but we need to see that a little bit more at the minute. I should probably mention with Bradford as well, just quickly going, but that's what I think they cope well actually pretty well by all sounds of it without Andy Cook, which was somewhat what we didn't expect in the week. But going back to Port, I think the proof will be to put it in the next few games. In particular, I think they did well to get a point in the end out with Cheltenham. So I think they were losing for quite for a period in that game. To nick a point right at the end, they'll be disappointed with the Crewe one that they held on so well until the last minute. And then this one in which they didn't really do an awful lot. If I'm going to be honest, I don't. It looked like a very comfortable afternoon for sinking in the Walsall goal. Right then, how's Walsall top of the league table toppers at the minute? How impressive have they been, Jack? Because I don't see how or where they're going to lose at the minute. They've just got goals all over. They're so well drilled, so well thought of. At the minute, they look like a real force. We were saying this a few weeks ago about Port Vale. It's funny how the table changes. Trust me, there'll be a lot more twists and turns at the minute, but I can't. This Walsall side on current form is easy top 3 material for me. I'm not sure what you think.
Yeah, definitely. I think they made Port Vale, who are probably they were all of our favourites, I think, or almost all of our favourites to win the league, possibly. And I mean, they've just shown it. One shot in the first half against Walsall, and then one shot on target in the second half versus Walsall. They seem so scared. And I think for a Walsall side to make a side of such confidence seem petrified to play, it shows the real quality. I think perhaps the form, they're good at shutting up shop, or were against Port Vale. It'll be interesting to see where they go. Obviously, it's a fairly young manager, and a fairly sort of unknown quantity. I think we all didn't expect this from them. Obviously, the last podcast I said there's always that underdog that gets into that top 3, and possibly it's Walsall this season. I don't quite see where they can slip up. They've got some really good sort of players that have gone under the radar at the minute, and there's still more to come. There's definitely still more to come from them. I like the look of Ryan Stirk especially, and then obviously the likes of Nathan Lowe, Jamil Matt. When Jamil Matt finds his form, he's going to score goals, and it's only a matter of time. I think them 2 up top, if they keep both of them, they could go on to do whatever they want, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned some of those players there. I'm really intrigued to see what Stoke do with Nathan Lowe in January. If Walsall can keep him, that is a huge bonus. He's been fantastic. The partnership with him and Matt have been really good. I've been impressed with the likes of Liam Gordon. Charlie Lakin's got quality in him. Connor Barrett in particular looks to be some player. He can have 5 assists this season as well. I don't think he played yesterday, but Jamie Giles is another one. I think there's already a few Championship and League One clubs looking at him. January will be interesting, and we'll have to see what happens if on Walsall's end, if they can maybe keep 1 or 2 of them till the end of the season, because they've got a really good team there. Ryan Stuck, as you mentioned as well, another cracking little player that they've got. Because if they keep the squad, adding to what they've already got in January, they look to be right up there, right up for the fight, and maybe arguably unexpected. Goal scoring problems. Yeah, what goal scoring problems? It's all right when you're top of the league, isn't it, for some? But no, look, Walsall, they've just been brilliant this season, and another great win for them yesterday. A team that has been brilliant this season. Right, okay, we're just going to talk about them. Grimsby Town, what a week it's been. Look, I think we should probably start on Morecambe. I'm going to start on Morecambe before we get into ours, but I think I've mentioned a few times and think they have been unlucky. I think they probably deserved a few more points than what they have done. I don't think they could have had many complaints yesterday. If I'm going to be completely honest, I thought the best team won, and it was quite comfortable in the end. But also concerning, I think, from a Morecambe perspective, the fact that Swindon won. Carlisle now have a game in hand over them. They've still got the likes of Tranmere and Accrington still above there, but it's a bit of a precarious position at the minute, but one that's not really expected, because I think we all knew that Morecambe were probably going to be down there, and I think yesterday at times really showed why they're down there.
Yeah, they've been outdone by quality yesterday, which is disappointing, but the big thing for Morecambe is putting that behind them and going into their next 3 games, because they've got Cheltenham, Bromley and Carlisle, which are 3 really big games for them, and if they can get a couple of points out of them, then they'll certainly pull themselves out of danger. And then heading into January, where they've got Chelsea away in the Cup, which will be really big for them, because obviously they are tight for money at the minute, so they can hopefully have a little bit of run of form until January, then use that money to strengthen.
Yeah, of course. I think they need to start winning more games. It's as simple as that. They've had a couple of decent wins here and there. We discussed the game against Tranmere the other night and how I just didn't think it benefited any team. That's what I felt with that. Sorry, Jack. But that's just sort of where they are. Derek Adams called it their worst performance of the season, and I think if you're watching it from an outside, I agree with that. Which now comes on to bring Grimsby Town. From watching it, I didn't go to the game, but I did watch it. I'd probably go as far to say that's our most complete performance of the season. I thought we were terrific from minute 1 to minute 90. Absolutely dominated the play, and I think 3-0 it was nice on Morecambe. I think on another day we probably could have had 5 or 6. 2 really, really good finishes from Justin Abiku in the first half. From 2 lovely bits of skill from Kieran Greeny Esther, Zina Green Zidane. That first goal, I don't think the highlights do it justice, actually, because I think it maybe started on the halfway line from where the highlights start, but it actually started near the opposite corner flag. Svan Thorson winning the ball, it just sort of absolutely skinned his man, did a Cruyff turn, took a few more touches, and then just the ball through to Abiku, who slotted it into the corner. It was a magnificent piece of skill, and you can see why Kieran Green's in the team. He's been absolutely fantastic this season. Probably goes far to say he's been the most transformed player I've seen at Town throughout my lifetime. I did not see this version of Kieran Green coming, and he's probably easily our most important player at the minute, because if he's on it, my God, we're certainly a much better team with it. And then, look, Danny Rose completed the scoring right at the end. And I think that third goal always felt coming. I just didn't felt that Morecambe offered anything. They had that one chance in the second half. Excellent save from Wright, and then Hume just to tip it over, to stop it crossing over the line. Who, again, I thought Hume was excellent yesterday. I think Jordan Wright has to take a fair bit of credit for the way he's come back into the team from his injury. He's looked steady. He's really improved a lot since he's been out of the team. And look, I think we're just reeling off players there. I'm trying not to get a little bit too carried away because we're doing all right at the minute. But 8 goals scored this week. I'm not sure if I said it on a previous pod, but I said it to Luke in particular. With us playing Accrington and Morecambe this week, I think this, we have a real chance to stamp our authority in it, and I've taken 4 points. In reality, we've absolutely blown them away, both of them, and it's hugely encouraging. Just seeing us fifth at the minute. Like I said, not trying to not get too carried away, but it's hard not to when you've been a football league club for a little bit now, and you've not really been this far up at all. You've just sort of been, mid-table to lower half to fighting relegation. It's completely different to us. So I'm just trying to be calm at the minute, but not a bad time at the minute.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't argue. It was a thoroughly professional performance from Grimsby. I don't think there was ever really a point you were going to lose that game. It was totally dominant. Have no argument there whatsoever. And the thing is, I think it does show that you have the ability to compete at the top end of this division, which is great. The only stipulation of that is that this is Accrington and Morecambe. What I now need to see now, you have Crewe and you have Port Vale both coming up. I need to see you doing that to them. Maybe not to the same extent where you run away with it for 90 minutes, but I need you to I need to see a performance that's worthy of a team that should be up there and battling. I have no doubts they can do it. It's just that struggle for consistency that places these sides towards the top and the ones that drift away towards mid-table. And
that's why I'm trying to not be as giddy as I am. Let's say we go and beat Crewe next week. I might be a little bit more believing. Hold on, we might be able to do something this week. But look, I'm not pinning our hope in these two games. I think there's still a long way to go. But I think yesterday just sort of affirmed to me that we can play. We can play. I have had no doubts that we couldn't. We could see what we were trying to do in a lot of those games. But against, albeit, we need to probably try and do it against better opposition with the greatest respect to Accrington and Morecambe. It just felt like something clicked yesterday and on Tuesday, which I think maybe there's been periods where it has been coming, and it's just been pleasing to see. I mean, I mentioned all about all those players there. Biku's changed this team. He's done well. I think there was a lot of question marks with him keeping Rose at the team, but he's absolutely taken his chance. 3 goals this week. And a special shout out for Jaden Luca as well. He looks a top draw player. Could have easily have scored himself yesterday as well. He looks Luton and have a very impressive player on their hands. Are we the next Crawley? I don't know. It feels weird, but it's not for the fact that we've been absolutely nailed on to go down this year. Some have said that, but I think a lot of people sort of saw us around the 15th to 20th mark. But what a job David Artell's doing. The fact that we've had our injury problems as well, and with the fact that we now have or starting to get back a much stronger squad. Honestly, who knows? And I'm really excited for what we can do, actually.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting sort of game. Obviously, I talked to you, Jordan, about Morecambe and how we face them. They're a big physical side, and I think they said, they're going to try and bully you. And I mean, putting it bluntly, really, any side that concedes 2 goals to us at the minute, you're going to be worried against proper opposition. And like you said, it could have been 4 or 5 for Grimsby, really. The only thing I've put in my notes is it's about as comfortable as you can get, really. It's looking good for Grimsby at the minute.
You've just got to carry it on. Like I said, Crewe next week, if we win that, then the optimism shoots from, it's already quite high as it is, but it'll shoot up even more if we can get a result out of next week with Swindon just before Christmas as well, albeit we play Port Vale back of the year. But, if we're still in and around the mix, by the end of the month, I'll be one happy man. And that's all I can really ask for. Really. But yeah, I couldn't fault any of yesterday. It was a top draw professional performance. Another 3 points to go along with it. And especially, unbeaten is 7 in a row on the road now, won 6 of them. Yeah, it's not too bad at the minute. A minute on the road. We need to do it at home now. That'd be nice. Right. Okay. So that's that one out of the way. Swindon, they won. That's different. But they beaten Fleetwood by 3 goals to 1. Harry Smith getting a hat trick. I think a lot of these games, I think you can maybe say that the conditions played a part in one way or another. You can maybe argue that with the Walsall goal. you can definitely argue that for Swindon's first, maybe at times. But look, Harry Smith with a hat trick. Just they needed a win. They needed a win so badly, and they got it. I don't think there's really much more you can add to that.
Yeah, the third win of the season and a much needed win, because there was a lot of pressure mounted on Ian Holloway because of some of the comments he'd made, which, to be fair, pretty much all of them have been slightly bizarre. So for them to get a win is just so badly needed. We've got Bradford and Grimsby up next, which are going to be two massive games for them. Jordan is not very happy with that. But yeah, if they can keep building on this...
I cannot wait.
Yeah, they just need to keep getting more wins to pull themselves out of trouble and just trying to sort it out, which they've struggled to do so far this season.
Yeah, and I think if you saw from Twitter, I think from what Nappers and what Jack mentioned, two well-known Fleetwood fans on Twitter, who came across Holloway at the start of the day saying, he's got nearly 1,000 games in management. What have you got? And, questionable stuff. I think if they'd have lost yesterday, my God, I think the pressure would have been high, because to go out and say stuff like that and then to not back it up is a worry. And I still think it is a worry that he's coming out and saying that last night, but you've got to give him credit. I mean, they could have scored a fourth. I mean, with the missed penalty from Paul Glatzel, but we should probably mention Harry Smith. He's not been bad, actually, since Ian Holloway's come in. That's his 8th of the season with a hat-trick yesterday. If Swindon are really going to do anything, how big is he going to be? Because he's looked quite the unit under Holloway, actually.
Oh, yeah, no, he's crucial, absolutely crucial to everything they're doing. And to be fair, I think after scoring an own goal in the last game, he must have been a man on a mission to go and get a free. And well, yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate result. The thing they needed. It's not just a tight win where they've had to sort of graft it out. It's a case of they've actually gone and taken the game to someone, and a lot of that is through Smith. You look at the initiative he has inside the box, and he did a lot in creating the goals, just as much as he did scoring them, to be fair. And like I said, it's almost similar to the way that Bradford are with Andy Cook. He's so essential to everything they're doing. If they can get him involved in the play and they can actually stay solid at the back, then they do have a chance. That they need to use this now as the catalyst for their sort of season revival.
Yeah, of course, and that needs to transpire throughout the whole team. Look, I mean, Smith, he's a proper target man, isn't he? He's a player in which, he's a handful to deal with. He's very good at heading a ball. He's all right with his feet as well. Yeah, I think once he gets going, he is a decent League Two striker. And I don't think anyone has doubted that. He does have the odd, hot head moment, as we've seen in the past. But no, I think in terms of strikers go, I think you can definitely go with much worse. Yeah, I mean, look, a hat-trick for him yesterday. Yeah, he's been pretty good since Holloway's come in. I think they probably played him in defence as well with his height and his decent heading ability as well. I think you could probably see why. Fleetwood, I thought they took the goal really well, but overall, they look pretty poor. I don't really know what more to say about this Fleetwood team. It's clear to see that they're struggling at the minute, and yesterday didn't help things by a long shot. Because as Swindon may have won 3-1, I mean, they missed a penalty, so it could have been 4. So they just looked, really poor from them yesterday in a week in which, they've conceded 7 goals in total as well. So, yeah, they're definitely stuck in a bit of a rut at the minute, I'd say. I'm not sure about you, Jack.
Yeah, I'd probably say that Swindon game, looking at it back, it's probably one of the worst performances from Fleetwood's defence all season, and I'm sure Fleetwood fans will probably agree with that. It's been called the perfect League Two hat-trick, not because of the technical ability, but because of how he scored it. And I think it's certainly helped by Fleetwood's defence and Fleetwood's keeper. And like you rightfully say, it could have really been 4. Overall, I think Fleetwood's always been the one that they're going to go steady. I don't think they're going to be anything that's going to excite us. I don't think they're going to be that sort of underdog, but you always know they're going to be a half decent side. I mean, against Doncaster, obviously tough opposition during the week, but definitely a bad result against Swindon. But I'm sure they'll bounce back. You know, they've got a good squad. They've got a good unit together. I'm sure that they will be able to bounce back pretty quickly as well. Whether they challenge for playoffs, I'm not too sure at the minute. But I think they're one of those top 10 sides, but probably not pushing on.
I mean, they ought to bounce back, really. I think they've won 1 in 8 at the minute. I think maybe as a part of me, which, you know, they've had a little bit of a stop-start season, maybe in terms of games we've played. There's not really much they can really do. I mean, they've had the MK Dons postponement, but they've had a couple called off for international call-ups as well. Maybe that has played a part in it. I'm not sure. I mean, Fleetwood are somewhat arguably playing catch-up a little bit. You know, playing 17 games, they played 2 games less than maybe a couple of other teams, maybe a little bit there to talk about, but they need to get their act together pretty quickly, actually, because especially for the fact that, you know, I've been banging a drum about Fleetwood squad for quite a few weeks. I do really like their squad on paper, but at the minute it's just something's not right, and yesterday I think sort of proved that something is not right, and it needs addressing very quickly, because look, in this league, you know, they're going to shoot themselves down the table. I mean, you know, as quick, you know, very quickly, but yeah, I don't think many can really argue with the result yesterday. Swindon and Ian Holloway certainly deserved it. I think it's safe to say. We'll move on to Chesterfield, because I know that Jack's been itching to talk about Tranmere Rovers in this one. 3-0 victory for the Spyrites, and it looks like it could have been way more. Jack, we'll come to you to talk about it. Another, I say, poor day, but I think you're having too many of them at the minute. I think miserable is probably a more useful term to describe that. It just looked like you were well beaten.
Yeah, completely agree. I think I came out at half time 2-0 down, and I said, well, it's expected. I don't quite know how we can fix it. I think they were just the better side, full stop. And I mean, you look at our bench at this time, do we have anyone that can change the game? Probably not. I think we set up fairly well. I think you've got Harvey Saunders, one of the fastest attackers in the league, I'd say, especially over a short distance. He can really beat defenders. And the win was in our favour. So you can imagine the ball's bouncing over the defender's head. They've got to turn and get back, and he's running past them. But we didn't make the most of it. I think it's one of the games where you needed to. And we've been the sort of team to try the long ball all season, and it's just not worked on the one day where it probably would have been the most effective. First 20, 25 minutes, Chesterfield seemed to struggle. I think, you know, they've got some of the best wingers, best attacking midfielder in the league. I mean, they've got Cole Clough, Darragh and Morecambe playing. You know, you're always going to be in trouble. And I mean, they absolutely played us off the park. Took them a while to sort of get the rhythm, and especially with the wind, sort of judge where the passes were going. As soon as they got that first goal, they were sensational. Surprised that Connor Wood, again, I think he's had a couple of poor games against, like, say, Morecambe. You know, it was always going to go one way. He got turned inside out. He was on ice skates. It was like he was celebrating Christmas. It was. Yeah, they absolutely dominated, and I'm shocked that it was only 3. It could have been 4. They had a shot that bounced off both posts, and we didn't really offer anything. I don't, you know, it's the disappointing thing with Tranmere at the minute. I don't see where it's going to come from. I mean, the best player that I said the other week in our advent calendar, he made a mistake, a bad pass, and it led to their 3rd goal. So it's all seemingly going wrong for Tranmere at the minute. You know, and the fans have had enough. Again, the only thing I can say, the thing that I said last time, you know, we're still on our way to a takeover. If a takeover happens, who knows? January investment, get a good striker in, probably change a manager. We might bounce back. At the minute, I don't see anything changing, and to be quite honest, I don't see it changing for a little while, especially until Christmas. And then who knows where we'll be? We could be bottom by Christmas.
I know you partly answered this already, but where do you stand with like Nigel Atkins and the players at the minute? Because you've got to get to Christmas yet, and you've got to get to January. Obviously with this takeover just still in the lube a little bit. Yeah, I'd be scared at present.
I think a month or two ago, I did do a post on social media asking people were they Adkins in or Adkins out, and the majority were Adkins in, not for the quality of him, not because they believed that he could change things, but because they were scared of the alternatives. You know, we're a club that's struggling for money and that have gone, you know, I think it's fair to say the sort of cheap way a lot of the time. I think at that stage, a month or two ago, fans were saying, well, let's hope and pray that this takeover happens and we can get someone of real quality in. At the minute, you know, I don't see a way around it. I think, you know, if Adkins goes, probably our assistant manager becomes manager. And then, you know, would he be any better? Probably not. We've had past experience of assistant managers turning up into managerial roles, and it's not been great. But can it get any worse? Probably not in this position. So I think it's a difficult one. I think the only thing to fix it really is a takeover, but that's probably the hardest thing to get at the minute. And the one thing that we're not in control of, you've got to wait for. I think that's the hardest thing, especially for fans. You've got no control. They've got no knowledge of what's happening behind the scenes.
Quickly, just on Chesterfield. Look, I think they've been a little bit inconsistent of late. You know, they've sort of won one, then they've lost one. They lost in the week to MK Dons, but they won this one very comfortably in the end. You know, just thoughts on them. I mean, the 2 points outside the playoffs, 2 points behind MK Dons, currently 7th, albeit MK Dons have played 2 games less than Chesterfield. But I mean, yeah, I think maybe a little bit inconsistency problems. I think we've mentioned a few times that I do think maybe at times they need to convert some of those draws into wins because they've had a fair few. But yeah, again, it just seemed pretty faultless yesterday.
Yeah, like you say, just very inconsistent. They've won 7, drew 7, and that's why they're just outside the playoffs. They're drawing a lot of games that they shouldn't be drawing. Obviously, yesterday they won very comfortably, which is very good for them. But if they do want to get into the playoffs, they need to turn those draws into wins. Just otherwise, they're just going to be too many points short come the end of the season.
Anything you want to add to that, Luke? I think we've pretty much covered everything with Chesterfield there, but anything in particular that you've been interested by with them, especially in this game?
Well, I think it's just a bounce back ability because, like I said, I mean, they were really poor against us. So it's good to see them bounce back in such a positive way. And, you know, I think they've won that game on pretty much every stat. So that's exactly what they needed. And if they can maintain that and, as you say, find that consistency, then, you know, it's all looking up. But obviously it remains to be seen where they go next.
Yeah, of course. Some pretty well taken goals actually in that game as well. Yeah, good win for Chesterfield. A good win for AFC Wimbledon, 3-0 winners at Harrogate. And again, another team that looked very comfortable. Yeah, look, I mean, Matty Stevens scored again, albeit he got the third one. John Joe Toole got the second with Josh Kelly with the first. I mean, if we're looking at stats alone, 19 shots to Harrogate's 5. They had 8 on target to Harrogate's 1. Harrogate really struggling at the minute, but a very good win for AFC Wimbledon to somewhat, you know, to still be in and around the playoff spot. They're in the playoffs at the minute, currently 6th at the minute. I think, I think as dominant as they come again.
Yeah, it was a really good performance, and yet another team that has played Harrogate and absolutely dominated them and limited them to very few chances, which if you can do that, you're going to win the game. It looked like it should have been so much more than 3. They went 3-0 up, and then the highlights showed just so many Wimbledon chances that I don't know how they only scored 3, which would be slightly disappointing, but won't be any major concerns. And I'm sure they're happy with the 3 points, building momentum into Doncaster and Chesterfield as the next games.
Yeah, of course, it's a big confidence booster as well because they've had a couple. I think past few games, they've had a couple of weeks in which they've been a bit hot and cold. A little bit inconsistent. I mean, they had that draw with Newport in the week, very frustrating, going 2-0 up and then conceding that late penalty right at the end. But I think they needed that result to get them going again. They have done, But I think what they struggled to have done, especially recently, is to back that up. And it's certainly not a bad place, I think, to do that. I mean, if we're looking at their next couple of games, albeit, look, they've got Doncaster and Chesterfield as their next two. So there's two very difficult games. But if you want to be up there, I suppose you've probably got to be trying taking some points off them. We know they've got the players to do it, but they need to try and attack that, really. So just stand up to them a little bit. I think it might be a decent time to play Doncaster, actually, because they've been a little bit iffy with the draws, albeit they've not lost a load of games. And Chesterfield I think are sort of similar. I think they've got a chance in those two, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games. I mean, they're in control that start to finish. I really don't rate Harrogate at all at the minute. I mean, they had one shot on target in that game at home. I think that's the second time this season. I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but I'm pretty sure I've said that about them before. So for me, they're particularly poor, but AFC took advantage. They were clearly up for the physical battle. Harrogate weren't. And I think that was summarised well when you look at the goals. Two of them being set pieces, and they easily ran away with it. It could have been more. And I mean, when you look at the stats as well, I think I calculated this. I think they had roughly 6.5 times the XG that Harrogate did. There was never a point Harrogate were in this game. We like to say they're just the way they're going, they're not going to be there much longer.
They were never in the game. From the looks of things, I don't even think they decided to turn up. I think they have been really. I think they've been quite poor for a long time. But you know what you're getting with Harrogate. But they find themselves 19 at the minute. I think when they have lost, I think they've been really poor defeats. I mean, look, Jake, you mentioned the other night how when Salford beat them, you said they looked really poor then. So, I mean, look, do I see them going down? No, actually, I think there's much worse teams than them. But I think we're probably looking to the point at the minute. Is something done? I don't really know what it is, because it's not like they're going to sack Simon Weaver. Not a chance. I mean, his father's the owner, isn't he? So it's not like that's going to happen. But I think Harrogate have punched above their weight for quite a long time now. I think as a football club, I think they always have done. They've had a few solid years in League Two, but I think it might be one of them. I think if I stay in the Football League, it's maybe a success. But I just think that something feels off with this Harrogate team compared to others. I'm not sure what you think, Jack.
Yeah, I think they've always, they've came up, they've had a few good seasons, but naturally that progression of everyone else around you, they've not progressed as much or not had the opportunity to. And obviously slowly they're pushing their way back down. Looking at the table at the minute, the two teams below them, obviously ourselves and Accrington, 3 points from them with a game in hand, both of us. So they could, obviously when games were equal, they could be 21st. I think the question sort of to open it up again, at what point do you consider Simon Weaver's job sort of worried for it? At what point? Because obviously, like you say, his dad's the owner. When do you go, okay, this is the time to change it? Let's make sure we're not relegated. Because, I mean, second, looking at it, obviously below us, second lowest goals in the league, above 4 goals conceded from ourselves. It's worrying times at the minute. And, at what point do you say, okay, enough is enough? Maybe it's time to change.
Yeah, I sort of get. Look, like I said, he will not sack him. He will not sack his son. I think the only time that Simon Weaver might leave is maybe for his own accord. Is that his dad will not just pull the plug on it. I do agree that something has to change. Because when they have lost, they have been poor defeats. I think the manner of them in terms of performance levels have been not good enough. But I think it'd be wrong to suggest that they're not in a relegation scrap, because I firmly believe they are. And, if they're not careful, I think, if some other teams, around them pick up a few more points, they could be right bang in it. They've got that bit of cushion at the minute, but I think they might need it because there's certainly a lot of alarm bells. And I think you probably see that a large part of that in yesterday's performance that looked absolutely miles off it. And Wimbledon dominated the game from start to finish. Maybe just something to think about. It's probably just worth mentioning the Accrington Bromley game. Bromley coming out of this one as 2-1 winners. Huge win for them. It's rocketed them up to 14th in what's been a brilliant week for them. Beating Gillingham in the week, as well as drawing Newcastle in the FA Cup after beating Solihull in the second round. I think as weeks go, it's. I think if we want to go even further than that, they drew with Walsall, albeit they very nearly won it. And then they drew with Carlisle. I think that one they'll be upset that they're throwing that away late. But I think if we're taking it for the past couple of weeks, I don't think any Bromley fan can complain. It's been a pretty good couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been perfect as far as they'll be concerned. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we were saying how they need to pick up some more points because they were getting quite close to the relegation battle. And now they've moved up to 14th, 5 games unbeaten, back-to-back wins in the league, 3 wins in a row in all competitions. It's been pretty perfect for them.
Yeah, and look, like I said, I don't think many can have too many complaints. I've always been adamant. I think Bromley will be more than fine this year. I think there's been way worse teams than them. I think some underestimated them a little bit. I saw quite a few actually predicting them to go down. I just couldn't see it. I think I always firmly believe they had a squad made to get results in League Two. I'm not sure how far they'd go in it, but I've always thought they were more than capable of staying in it. I think with the management and look, and certainly a big part of that team is Michael Cheek, another goal for him yesterday, and he's clearly going to be a big part why they're staying in the EFL next season, isn't he?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you look at that goal in particular as well. It's not just the quality; it's the determination as well to charge effectively directly through the middle of Accrington's defence and open the scoring the way they did. And obviously, a lot of the goals do come through him. I do think you have to give some credit to Imre as well on the wing. I think between the pair of them, they're creating lots of quality moments. And I think the thing is, to get relegated from this league, you don't just have to be poor; you have to be a mess. And I don't think Bromley are. I think they're quite well run the way they are at the minute, and they're picking up points here and there. That being said, I do also think Accrington will be okay the way they're going. They seem to have some sort of plan at the very least. I'm not worried for them the same way that I would be, say a Tranmere, sorry, Jack, or a Swindon or a Morecambe. But I think I'd say Cheek's influence is definitely huge for Bromley. I'm not sure how they'd necessarily do without him, to be fair, but as things stand, I think they'd be totally fine.
Yeah, and I perfectly agree with you with the fact if you're going to go down, you've got to be really poor on the pitch as well as off it. I think Grimsby have been a prime example of that. I think some others that have been most notable recent years, Southend, Scunthorpe, Oldham. There's been a few, and Bromley are not that. They're pretty sound off the pitch, and they're not bad on it. Accrington, it's been a poor week on the whole. I mean, they drew Liverpool, got hammered in the week, and lost this game. It just felt a pretty big one. And they've gone and lost it, and they're nowhere near out of it yet.
Yeah, I mean, no way to sugarcoat it. Really, they're struggling. I think it's sort of that seconding on what you've said. You need to be a poor side and a poor club situation to get relegated. So maybe there's not too many relegation worries as such, but I'm sure they'd want to be doing much better than they are at the minute. Like I say, Paul lost to Grimsby, obviously. Paul lost to Bromley. Michael Cheek doing what Michael Cheek does. He was always going to score. He's as consistent as they get. Again, Accrington, they've got an exciting side. Surprised that Sean Whalley's as effective as he is. Obviously, he's getting on now, but he's doing a real part once again for Accrington. And it's whether they can change that form. A few 2-2 draws in the past 5 games and then 2 losses. You've got to hope it's gonna change, but we'll have to wait and see. But I'm hopeful for them. I'd love to see them, obviously not in place of Tranmere, but I'd love to see them stay up. And it'll be interesting to see. But I think they'll be more than comfortable. It's just climbing back up the table now.
Yeah, and they've got some decent players. So they had, Woods and Costello is another one, which has had a pretty good season on the whole. But yeah, by no means out of the clear. And I think what I said in the other pod, I think you can see that they were tired, but I think they were one of the worst teams I've seen a Blood Park come for a long time. I thought they were pretty hideous, especially first half. But you can only beat what's in front of you, and that's exactly what Bromley have done. It's huge for them. It's as simple as that, and it's giving them a little bit of breathing space. 2 more games to run through. We'll run through these ones pretty quickly. We'll start with Doncaster, 2-2 draw against Cheltenham. Cheltenham have done all right of late. Doncaster have been, they've sort of, I think wins have dried up. I wouldn't say that they've lost a load of games because they haven't, but certainly a fair few draws in there, and they're not in a bad position by any means, but I think with the amount of draws, I make that 4 out the last 5 against if with the greatest respect to Carlisle and Salford, who have not done too bad recently, probably sides that they maybe should be beating, and it could play part of it at the end of the season. It generally could.
Yeah, it's their home form as well, which is pretty concerning. They've won 4, drew 4, and lost 2, which whilst it isn't bad, like you say, the draws against teams they should be beating, although they are third, which they won't really mind if they do want to challenge, because they have the quality to win this league, no doubt, but they won't be able to do that if they don't turn their home form around and really become a fortress like it was in the second half of last season, which they're on push on, which will be, they just need to sort their home form out, and I'm sure that'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. That sort of feels mad we're saying it with Doncaster third in the table currently, but it's just one of them. I think teams are catching up to them. Crewe are 2 points behind them. Hey, God forbid we're only 2 points behind Doncaster now. There's a good side there, good players. I tell you what, Broadbent's goal in particular, the equaliser at 1-1, really good hit. That was really satisfying actually. But quick note on Cheltenham, is not a decent result in the end. Is what I feel about that. I don't think there's really much more to say. Just I think they'll be more happier than Donny.
Well, I actually think we need to give Cheltenham quite a lot of credit. To be fair, it's yet another game where they've held their own against top opposition, and I mean they'll probably be a little disappointed because they've thrown away a lead twice, but they've really put up a fight. And their fine form is continuing, which is great for them, even if it is probably 2 points dropped in this scenario. I mean, they've got a couple of easier games now, which you'd hope they could maybe win on their current form. But then you look at the games after that, they've got to play all the top sides again come late December going into January. So I think these next couple of games could be really important for them just to propel themselves back up the table and then hope they can compete again. Well, now they've got to play all these top sides for a second time.
Yeah, actually, I take what I said back actually, because for part of me thought that Doncaster were winning 2-1 in that game. They weren't. I think there's maybe an inch of disappointment. The fact that they've taken the lead twice and have not seen it out, but definitely some huge encouragement there. Very nearly beat Port Vale the other night. I think it's proven that they can take points out of the better teams in this league. They've just got to keep doing it. They've got Morecambe next, and then like I said, they've got to run. I mean, with Gillingham coming up, Crewe, Notts County, Port Vale, they've Walsall. God, they've got a right tough running, haven't they? Look, if they can get a few points here and there, then I don't think they'll be complaining too much. But I mean, they've been all right. They've been all right of late. Maybe 1 or 2 concerns for Donny, but probably not some over the top. I mean, you mentioned the home form is probably the more concerning thing with them 63rd minute. We'll rattle through the last game very quickly. Salford on the end of a defeat to an out-of-form Gillingham side. Gillingham lost in the week to Bromley. Another really poor display. Definitely another really poor result. They've beaten Salford this time, but they've now got to back that up. I mean, I think I thought some people thought, especially myself included, maybe they might have turned a corner with beating Port Vale. But they've gone and lost to Harrogate and Bromley since. So maybe Gillingham, maybe second time lucky. Although looking at it, Salford actually looked the better team in that. Shay, what do you think, being a Salford fan?
Just the same old problems of not having a goal scorer, which has probably killed us all season. We've only scored 17 goals all season, which is certainly one of the lowest in the league. We had a great chance where Stockton went through, and I don't know how he missed. And then we had a couple of others that were pulled across back into the box, and there didn't be no one there, which is so frustrating to watch. And then you can see the goal, which should have been dealt with better, because Fauna just tries to run and try and hit them on the counter, but he's going to run into the mud, which is obviously going to make it easier for you to be tackled. It's just disappointing after you think you've turned a corner after an impressive win against Harrogate to have a result like that. But we just got to bounce back. We've got Notts County next, which won't be easy, so we just got to make sure that we don't get beat too hard.
Yeah, I mean, Salford haven't been bad recently, for judging by recent results, but I think it's probably been times. I think the same issues have come to roost. They just don't simply score enough goals. I think it's pretty clear from the off. I mean, Jack knows the thing about teams not really scoring a lot of goals. But just very quickly on Gillingham, I think the win was somewhat needed, because I think the pressure was getting to both Gillingham and Mark Bonner a little bit. I think rightly so, with the form that they have been on. They've won this one, but I think it's more about winning. They have to back this up now, especially with the squad of players that they have on paper, albeit it's going to be tough because they've got an informed MK Don side next. But they've got to use this as a springboard now to hopefully try and get something out of MK, then really kick on.
Oh, yeah, no, they do. I mean, it was an unspectacular win at best. I think they've had 5 shots with an XG of 0.2. Sorry to be the XG merchant today. But, like I said, they're unspectacular. They desperately needed a win, and that's what they got. It was more about the result in this case, I think. The performance probably wasn't there, but they just needed some kind of platform to build from. Whether they can build from it against us, not so sure. Not going to comment too much, considering how we're about to play them. But, it's an improvement in terms of the fact that they needed the points, but they need a more sustained run than that. Put it that way.
Absolutely. Jack, any final thoughts just on the fixture alone on your own?
Not really. Pretty much echoing what everyone said. I mean, it's good that Gillingham can hold out results. 31% possession in the second half. They can grind it out, which is always a good sign. Salford just need to convert more. That's it, really.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think your team knows a little bit of not converting chances or not having. Well, it's not for the lack of Salford trying, because they had about 40 shots against us, and they somehow scored one. So I think the problems were there to see against us. But look, I think it'll be. I think it certainly seems like it'll be hard done. I did listen to part of Carl Robinson's interview, and he sounded like a little bit bewildered how they hadn't got anything from that. But no, Gillingham, they've got the win, much needed, but they've got to back it up. It's as simple as that, because we thought it might have been the case against Port Vale, as mentioned. It turns out that proved to be a little bit of a false dawn. But they can do it. They've got the players, and I don't think they'll rest on their laurels in January. I think if they're still somewhat around that, I think they'll probably look to address it there, and they might throw a little bit more money at it. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens, but they need a few more results in the meantime to somewhat catch up this playoff chasing pack, in which I still think they will. I still think they'll turn a corner eventually. They've just got to really start to do it now. But that's where we'll wrap it up this week. Pretty much bang on the hour again. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening. Make sure you do all the usual stuff. Make sure you go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like, comment what you thought of the games. Let us know on our social media platforms. Make sure you go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And we'll be back next week for a big run of fixtures. I really hope I'm saying we've just taken 3 points of Crewe when we're right in the thick of this promotion race. But chances are we'll probably lose 4-0, and I'll be my ideas you won't believe. But that will do this week. Hope you guys have enjoyed listening. I will catch up with you next week.